Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. It's my birthday! I am 28. So nice of them to give me a screener to a movie I've been really looking forward to on my birthday, and it didn't suck! Hey guys, how's it going? Pragmatic Addict here. I hope that you guys are all doing well. So I just got back from my early screener of the new raunch comedy, Joyride. So I was really looking forward to this movie. As you guys all know by now, or most of you, I am very picky when it comes to comedy. But when it comes to raunch comedies, especially female-fronted ones, you know, ones like Bridesmaids or Girls Trip, I am always really excited for those. There's just something about female-fronted raunch comedies where it's like, it's that thing where initially it's not something that you're supposed to see. You know, like Bridesmaids, when the lady gets like food poisoning, she's like shitting in the fucking street. It's just something that you are not expecting to see, let alone in a raunch comedy, but especially one, you know, in a female-fronted one. So when I saw the reviews for Joyride, this movie, and it was absolutely banging at fucking South by Southwest, and I saw that it was actually a Point Grey picture, which if you don't know Point Grey Pictures, it is the production company of like Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. Yes, they are the dudes more or less behind this film, so again, I was just absolutely anticipating this movie, and I saw it, and well, let's see how much of a ride this movie was. Spoiler alert, this movie's a fucking ride. So, first off, I do want to state that I didn't really know what this film's plot was going into it. I just saw the trailers, I heard stuff about it where I was like, okay, I want to see it. And now that I have seen the movie, I don't actually know if I'd say that there is a singular plot. There is plot points, there are stories in the movie where the movie is more or less about where its aim is, and I would say that this does have a more or less main-ish character. Again, this is a raunchy comedy that has to do with like a vacation, again, something kind of like Bridesmaids or Hangover, where it has an ensemble cast, and you know, with each character, they all have their own like characteristics, personalities and shit. There's like the mature one, there's the horny one, but there is a more main center character of the four, which basically in this movie, so again, like I said, there's multiple storylines more or less. So the first one is like they're going to Beijing and she's trying to get promoted at her job, and she's also going on this trip to meet her birth mom because the mainish character is actually adopted. But what I liked about this film is that this film is only 90 minutes and they cram a lot of story in this. They also cram a lot of variety of comedy in this, which we will get to in a moment. But with each character, like, one of them is a very famous movie star. The other one, the horny one, she's known for being like an artist for very shock value stuff. She has this like playground display, this like little figure piece, this little art piece that's all just like dicks and vaginas. She also made this thing that's like, it's called a licky cat, and I want one. It's my birthday, guys. Give me a licky cat. You know, it's those little like cat like displays that go like that. Only this one goes, and it's got the little tongue in. It's a licky cat. There's also a very socially awkward and just awkward in general one out of the group that has like no friends. She's very, again, just awkward, and her whole life is just basically centered on K-pop. They have plenty of characteristics to each character and plenty of storylines with each character, more or less, even though there is a main-er character with main-er storylines. But this movie just had so much to give the audience. It had so much to give the audience of all tastes, especially when it does come to its comedy. Which, talking about the comedy, so what I will say is that right off the bat, right when the movie fucking starts off, you see that this is a hard R script. There's plenty of stuff in here, again, right from the get-go where you're like, this would not work, typically, in a movie of today. But what allows this film to get away with shit is that, one, it is a very self-aware comedy. This has a lot to do with the Chinese, like, culture, and it's very self-aware of that, to the point where I'm like, even not only in comedic moments, but just in story-driven moments in general, I'm like, okay, this feels important, and I know that it's important. You can see that this is supposed to be important, but because I am not that aware of this kind of like culture and everything, it did kind of lose me at times, where I did find that a little bit disappointing. But again, that's just on me. That has nothing to do with the movie. But another thing that helps this movie get away with shit is that, yes, this does flip the shit a little bit, and it is all based on women, which definitely goes for a little bit of that shock value. Like I said earlier, where it's like kind of this unspoken thing where it's like we're not typically supposed to see women in this light, which is why I always respect raunchy comedies that are, especially female fronted. But one thing I will say about this movie also right off the bat is that you feel like it's going to be that very impressive comedy that knows how to balance out the raunchiness and knows how to, kind of dial it back and focus on dramatic and sweet tones. And what I will say is that this film does tune in and out of like the very raunchiness and like the more dramatic stuff. But what I will say is that it doesn't always land for me personally, because what I was saying earlier about how there's a lot of variety, especially with the comedy. When I say that there's a variety, not only do I mean that there's a lot of variety, especially for all tastes, but you also get just like a lot of comedy that, as far as like how it delivers in this film. There are more centerpiece comedic moments where you're like, okay, that was definitely like one that they definitely put a lot of effort into, where it was supposed to be one of the standout moments of the film. And then there are times where you feel like, was there even like a script to this movie, where a lot of it feels improvised. And obviously with comedies, it is very common for the film to have, some improvised moments, and sometimes that lands and sometimes it doesn't. And in this film, you definitely get both of those aspects. But not to go too off track and everything, when I was saying that, like, sometimes the dramatic moments and, like, when it does dial back to the sweeter moments, it doesn't always land for me, because honestly, there were times where it just felt completely awkward, because with this being a raunch comedy, there are times where it hits hard, like really fucking hard with the comedy, where I would say that there were times in this movie, in my theater experience, where it was a brand new experience for me. I mean, there were times in this movie where it gets so wild and intense in that raunchiness, where after the scene was done, after it ran its course, I was literally, guys, I shit you not, there was a time where I blurted out, "Well, how you guys doing?" to the fucking crowd, because what I can say about this film is that if you see this film with a crowded audience, it's one of those experiences where it's like, you're going to be very comfortable with each other by the end of the runtime. You're going to get to know each other just fine with this movie. And that sweeter, more dramatic, serious tone of the movie, that half, it definitely not only feels weaker, but again, for me, it just felt like kind of dry, and it just, again, it just felt very weak compared to how strong and how much of a variety the comedy had in this movie. But also, going into this movie pretty blind, what I will say is that, like I was saying earlier, with how the movie just kind of sets you like up for what is going to transpire, like it just gets that ball rolling from the get-go. What I will say is that as someone who went into this completely blind, there is stuff, especially in the first act, like I would actually say that the first act, more or less, was definitely like the weaker part of the movie, where I was like, is this really gonna be a movie that does it for me? Because in the first act of the film, they do set up things very fast, where not only does it happen from the get-go, but it's very on the nose from the get-go, where it feels like they're trying too hard at times. And again, it feels like they're trying to find their fitting with the comedy, because again, there is a lot of variety of it. And honestly, at the beginning, it just kind of feels like a raunchy comedy, where there's some moments that land, there's some that don't. But what I will say, guys, and I can't stress this enough, is that once the film gets going, it gets going. Where I would actually go as far as to say that once the film gets through the first act, it kind of feels like it just recycles out like an initial screenwriter, and it brings a new one in who has more experience, who knows how to write better material, where it actually was like, alright, move over, let daddy work. And it makes that first half of the film like feel like you're getting on the ride, and you're like, oh, there's like some moments that I liked, but it's not really picking up the pace, and then it just shoots you for a very high, very fast loop. And it just goes from there with not knowing what to expect. Also, the biggest selling point of this movie, without a doubt, was the cast. And not only the cast, but also the characters. Again, there is so much of a variety in this movie, and that includes whether it be the comedy, whether it be the storylines, but also the characteristics in this movie. Each character has their own story, and each one of them feels like their own person. They're each likable in their own degree. They're each like a specific character that, you know, you could choose who you want to root for or who you feel like you resonate with the best. And each performance is just absolutely nailing it. They all feel dedicated. They all hit the mark. Even if that comedy isn't always hitting, or like there's a part in the movie where it kind of like the movie kind of drags, you're always caring about these characters because no matter what they're doing on screen, they are always delivering it to their fullest potential. And in the end, guys, yeah, like I said, it's got enough for all tastes. Even if it is somewhat hit or miss, up and down, it still mostly works because of the cast and more or less the charm overall. And overall, yeah, I'm gonna say that Joyride was fine. So yes, guys, that is going to do it for my early review of Joyride. Definitely go check this one out. I don't know where I'd say it ranks as far as like the best of the year, but it is, in the very least, one of the best comedies of the entire year. I would definitely recommend this film. I know it does come out at the same time as Insidious. Again, two vastly different genres, but for those that, you know, do want to see a good comedy and aren't in for the new Blumhouse horror movie, the 5th one in the fucking horror franchise, definitely go see Joyride. It is a fun time. But yes, guys, that is going to do it for this review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're having a good night, and I will see you very soon in my review of Insidious: The Red Door. Take care, guys. Have a good one.